Nick, I'll let you answer this question. He says, "What's your opinion about people trashing Xenoblade 3 because it's not 60 frames per second?"
I get it. Like, you know, you're mad that the game's not on your preferred console, whatever. You might have a Xbox or PlayStation and you want it on there, but you know, Monolith,
I think if it's optimized well enough for the platform it's on,
it's
you know,
optimized well, man.
running
It
running
runs
at a
well.
consistent 30 is probably fine. Like,
Yeah. So I don't really care what people say if people are trashing it because it doesn't impact my enjoyment of it, and those people were
but
never going to
why?
play it
But
anyways.
why? I just don't understand why people trash
Because
the
the Switch is I don't know, man. I feel like the Switch has like these really good exclusives and people secretly want them on their console of choice. And
yeah.
you know, just the way the cloth is cut, like Monolith Soft is owned by Nintendo, or they're, you know, second party to Nintendo,
Yeah.
and this franchise just isn't going to come anywhere else. And you know, it is what it is, man. Like it runs great.
I just don't get it. Like that game would be so much better if it just played on like you probably haven't even played it to even know.
Yeah, like all the people who are trash talking, they wouldn't play it if it was on their console of choice, I'm sure.
Risky, I didn't read IGN's review or Digital Foundry's stuff. I mean, they gave it an 8 on IGN, which IGN is pretty, I don't know, they're kind of all over the place. Like they give, I don't know, I like them for the most part, but they're kind of hit or miss sometimes.
I did read the review, and it was a weird review because the reviewer said they spent 150 hours in the game,
Okay.
but then thought that some of the aspects of it was tedious or archaic, but they still did everything there was to do in the game. So it's like that's kind of on you for overexerting yourself and doing every side quest when it's never an option. Like it's never a requirement to sit there and do everything in one area before moving on. Like I think that really impedes enjoyment sometimes with bigger games.
And I think like when I either I don't really go to a website for a specific reviewer, but you know, if someone's reviewing it, like I don't play every single aspect of a game. There's some part, like some side quest I don't want to do, or some challenge that like I'm not going to do it. Like that's just going to hinder my experience of the game. So I'm just not going to do it. Like I didn't do everything in Elden Ring. I didn't do every single piece of side quest just because I didn't feel like it, and I felt like I got what I wanted out of that game. Yeah. I mean, Risky. So many people want just realistic 4K stuff. They just want the best of the best, you know. And
I get that.
And most of the like Xbox, the Series X, and PS5, like most of those aren't even doing 120 frames per second. So I mean, and I guarantee you, some like a normal person is not going to be able to tell the difference between 30 to 60 to 60 to 120 for the most part. You may have some hiccups on the Switch. I mean, it just happens. You know, there's also hiccups on the Series X that I've seen. So it's not everything's perfect and not everything's going to run flawlessly. I think people just love to hate on the Nintendo Switch because it is underpowered versus what we got. You know, it's the Switch Pro heretics, as an OJ would say, player essence.
The heretics.
They just want the most powerful thing, and Nintendo's never been that. I don't think they ever will, because they don't need to be, because they do such an amazing job at optimizing their games to work really well. You know, obviously Breath of the Wild had some issues, you know, frame rate wise. That grass killed it. But also like, you know, Mario Odyssey ran amazingly.
Beautiful.
You know, so
it's, you know, I have a PS5, I have a Series X, I have a Switch. I have absolutely no problem jumping from, you know, a game like Spider-Man on the PS5 to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 on the Switch. Like it just like hitting 60 or hitting 4K or hitting 120, it doesn't really matter, because if the game's fun, the game's fun. Of course, you know, it has to run okay. It can't run terribly.
Yeah, it can't run. It can't run like sub 20 frames per second and be an enjoyable experience. But also, like, you shouldn't. I don't know. You shouldn't review a game based off of whether it's 30 or 60. If it runs well, either 30 or 60 or both or in between, whatever, then that's perfectly fine. But to caveat and say, well, you know, it only runs
30.
at 30. Like we've just gotten past like we barely hit the mark of like 60 FPS on console games like just recently.
And that's unreliable still a little bit.
Yeah, so like we've been doing 30 for a long time. So I don't know why all of a sudden people are losing their minds over frames per second. Like it doesn't matter. To your point, yes, they probably will bash Bayonetta 3 when it comes out. And I know when God of War comes out, they're gonna, and it's gonna be an amazing game, but they're gonna say that it's the most amazing game of all time, and it's gonna have 60 FPS, blah blah blah. That's 60. It runs at 60 FPS.
The photo mode pictures are gonna just plague Twitter.
Know. Risky, Nick and I, we love all the consoles. Like we play everything. So we always just have to laugh at people that just criticize a specific game or a specific console or frames per second. Like none of it matters. Like as long as the game is good and optimized well, that's it.
Like we played Legends Arceus earlier this year, and that sometimes ran sub 20, but that was still fun.
Yeah, I mean that and it looked like doo-doo, but it was amazing. It was like one of my favorite Pokemon games of all time because it was so new, such a fresh experience, and yeah, it ran pretty poorly in some spots, but I think just the overall gameplay made up for it. So
but to cap off Xenoblade Chronicles 3, this could end up being one of my favorite JRPGs of all time.